If you clicked on this video, you're very likely a car lover like me, and you've probably noticed something over the last few years. Cars kinda suck now. Today I want to look at what's going on with car culture in 2025, why everyone seems to be so nostalgic for the 90s and 2000s car era, and the unfortunate direction that I think cars are going to take in the coming years. Let's jump in. I don't even know where to start with this. There's so many examples. Car companies these days are kind of taking two directions in where they want to take their sports cars. You've got the one side that's kind of given up on creating something cool and ambitious and groundbreaking and opting more for something cost efficient, EV or hybrid friendly, and really just downright playing it safe when it comes to their car designs. Then you have the other side of car brands these days, which are trying to so badly rekindle that 90s and 2000s spark by creating all these vintage designed cars, by going back to the retro style of the 90s and 2000s, but still not creating something new and cool. It's not just car culture that's going through this. We see this all the time in things like video games, for example, movies. Tons of remakes are coming out these days. Not a lot of new content, new entertainment is coming out. People are grabbing onto nostalgia and then trying to recreate that and capitalize on that feeling, basically. And car culture is no different. The biggest example of this is the Nissan Z. They're trying to go back to their old roots with this one and kind of recreate some of the old Datsuns. The Z is fine, there's nothing insane about it, and it's actually been underselling worldwide. The problem with something like this is there's no innovation happening. The Nissan Z is built on the chassis of the 370Z, which is over a decade old already. According to a post made late 2024, the Nissan Z has only sold 2,034 copies since its release in 2022. It's clear that this is not what car fans want at the end of the day. We're not looking for remade, rehashed models of our favorite 90s and 2000s legends. We want these car companies to build on those models, to create new, better versions of them. Now, it's not always the case that a car company does this wrong. There are car companies that are building on their previous models and making them better, and I think a company that did that really well is Acura. We have the new Acura Integra coming out in 2025, and in my opinion, this thing looks really cool. It's not trying to be the Acura Integra from the 2000s. It's its own upgrade of that existing model, and I think in this year, it is the perfect car for what it's trying to be. Now, you could probably guess that this was coming at some point in the video, but another reason cars kind of suck now is because of the death of the manual transmission. Back in the 90s and 2000s, driving stick was part of the experience. It kind of came standard, you get it? It came standard as an option with every sports car, every sports model that was released back then. If we look at cars like the aforementioned Acura Integra, the RX-7, or even ones like the base model Miata, banging out gears was kind of part of the experience. Today, most cars don't actually offer a manual transmission. Automatics are faster, sure, but to me, paddle shifters just don't cut it. BMW is a really good example of this. They've pretty much stated that this group of M cars that they just released is going to be the last group of M cars available in a manual transmission. Now, their reasoning for this is they say people don't drive them anymore. The market for manuals is much smaller. Now, my prediction is within the next 10 years, there's going to be a whole generation of car guys and people growing up that do not know how to drive a manual. Not that it's a requirement, but the feeling you get driving a manual gives you so much more control and aligns you with the car more so than you could ever get in an automatic. Now, that being said, the BMW M5 E60 I drive is an SMG, so I get that automatics can still be a lot of fun. But just to absolutely wipe out manuals altogether, it's very sad, and it's really like a part of car culture, and one of the key parts of car culture is dying with that shift. You get it, shift. Now, something else that I absolutely hate about cars in 2025 is the tech overload. Why does every car have to have an enormous iPad slapped in the middle of the center console now? In terms of practicality, a touchscreen is not the right move and simply not safe when it comes to something you need to push while you're driving and can't look at. And while we're on the topic of this tech overload, just interiors in general have just taken a big over the last little bit. I don't know what it is about these car brands that just adore minimalism for no reason, but I am so sick of seeing a completely buttonless steering wheel with a completely buttonless center deck and then literally nothing else in the car. The worst perpetrator for me for this is the Tesla. I think these are just terrible. I totally respect people who do like Teslas. For me, it's like what Jeremy Clarkson likes to say, and that's just, I don't think I'll ever own a Tesla. I don't think you're gonna catch me in one. It's just not an exciting car to me. And there is really just something about cars seemingly having lost their magic. The Mitsubishi Eclipse went from a tuner icon in the 90s to a crossover. The Subaru WRX used to be a rally-bred legend. Now it's heavier, softer, and let's be honest, it's kind of ugly. Even muscle powerhouse cars like the Ford Mustang has gotten so big and heavy that it's lost some of its raw muscle car charm. I think the biggest shame of this is the legendary 90s and 2000s cars just being turned into like soccer mom SUVs. It's a tragedy. Now, another reason why cars kind of suck now is just the cost. As a car guy myself, it is so hard to get into a cool car these days because A, the new cars in 2025 are so expensive you can't get into those anyway, and B, nobody wants to drive them because they kind of suck and are boring, so that drives the price of all the 90s and 2000s cars people actually want to get to also through the roof. I honestly have this theory that it's harder now than ever before to get into car culture in terms of buying your first car to become a car guy. And it really sucks for those people that don't have one yet. When even the used 90s Miata has doubled in price, you know that there's a problem. How is a younger car fan supposed to get into the hobby when the barrier to entry has become so high? Now, I don't really know how to put this next point, but I'm gonna call it the TikTokification of car culture. And this is kind of true for any culture these days. It's really hard to be unique with cars in 2025. And that's why they kind of suck now. I think a lot of people follow trends in terms of what's cool to do, what cars are good to buy. And something that was really disheartening to hear was a big car content creator, who I'm not gonna name, once said in a TikTok where they were announcing a new car they got, that they basically had to choose between what was the car they wanted to build and what was the car that they think would be best for their channel and would get them the most views to build. And they ended up going with that car. And that loss of authenticity, I think, is really hurting car culture for sure. I would likely have way more subscribers if I was building something other than an old 2006 BMW M5. It's not the most trending or viral car out there at the moment. Probably I would do better getting something like a newer BMW, but that is very expensive, or something like a JDM car like a BRZ, for example, because those are very accessible and everyone loves to watch that content. The car I have is very niche, but to me it's an absolute dream car, and there's kind of this small community we've built around that car that I still think remains super authentic. That being said, I do have my eyes out now for the next project coming to the channel, and that should be coming hopefully within the next year. So if you do want to see what car that ends up being, and you can hold me accountable if I buy a car for views versus for what I really want to build, make sure you subscribe so that when that video comes, you can come back and enjoy that purchase with me. Now, another whole market to look at in general is the exotic car market. Again, this is a personal opinion, but I look at those 90s and 2000s sports cars and they just have so much more character than the cars that you see today. I'll use Lamborghini for example. The Gallardo, the Murcielago, and even the Huracan are some of the best looking Lamborghinis they've ever made. Hot take, I'm not a fan of the new Lamborghinis. They look like they were designed by AI. They look like if you turned the mechanics and the tech and the craziness of a car up to 100, and that doesn't necessarily mean it's a good car. Again, this is just a personal opinion, but the way I always like to word it is, when I was a kid and I liked playing a racing game, I always liked the first couple chapters, maybe the first 50% of that game, where you have the lower end cars that aren't crazy hypercars, but there's so much personality and customization to them. When you get to that point where you're buying those insane cars that there's nothing to do to, you can't even customize them, there's nothing you can do to them. And I find that is happening in today's world too. The older cars, there's something about the 90s and 2000s, even in the exotic world, that just has so much soul that I don't think the modern cars of today have. Now, all that being said, what do I think this means for car culture in the future? Unfortunately, I only think it's gonna get harder, to be honest. EVs and hybrids are becoming more popular, which means petrol cars with big engines and manual, for example, like a lot of the 2000s and 90s sports cars are only gonna become rarer. And what does that mean? It means the price is going to skyrocket. So it's already hard to get into these cars now. I only think it's gonna get more difficult. The only example I can use is my own car. It is a V10 BMW M5. It is the only V10 BMW ever made. It's the last naturally aspirated BMW M5 they ever built. And when I bought it in 2017, I paid 17,500 Canadian dollars for it. Today, the cheapest BMW M5 E60 available in Canada is about $42,000, so it's over doubled in price. So unfortunately, I think we're headed down a path where more and more of this car culture is gonna be too difficult for new people to get into. That being said, it is not all hopeless. It is up to us to keep car culture alive, to keep modifying cool cars, to keep these brands accountable for the cars they're making. The way we speak in terms of what we like and what we don't is with our purchasing power. Don't buy the cars you don't like. Don't buy the cars that you think are gonna go viral or something like that. Buy what you want to build for you. And although things may get tougher in the future, I think if we stick to the core values of what makes car culture so special, I think we're gonna be okay. So that being said, guys, I hope you enjoyed, and I hope this was kind of an interesting look at why cars kind of suck today. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to know what you think, and if you think I'm totally wrong, call me out, no hard feelings. If you enjoyed this video too, please leave a like and make sure you sub, like I said, to keep up with all the videos coming up in the future, more videos like this, also building the M5. And if you want to express that love for car culture even more, go over to my car clothing brand, apparelbyenemy.com. We got tons of car clothing, hoodies, tees, and accessories, for example, that I think you're gonna love. I built Enemy for people that enjoy the drive more than the destination, and I think that's you. So I hope you enjoy, and I'll catch you in the next one. My name's Chris. See ya.